Well, it comes as no big surprise that the winner of the ship showdown is the Drake Caterpillar. Now, I kind of figured it was going to be either the Caterpillar or the Cutlass. Outside chance it was going to be the Reclaimer, but I am kind of a Drake fan, so I was hoping for a Drake ship to win out in the competition. Though I have to admit, I took no small measure of joy, of happiness, out of seeing the 890 jump get beaten by the Dragonfly. That was kind of a surprise, and a happy surprise at that. I was like, wow. That kind of turned me around and made me think, when the 600i, the 300, and the 890 jump just got flattened, I just went, maybe I'm not the only one who sees this. Maybe I'm not the only one who understands. I always kind of looked at it and thought, I think maybe me and other like-minded individuals are probably in the minority, but who knows? Maybe there is kind of a silent majority thing going on with these ships. It makes me very curious to know what the statistics are on the ships that people own right now. I would love to know what is the most popular manufacturer in the Star Citizen universe by the amount of ships currently owned by the players, by the backers. I would really love to know that. I would love to see that chart. But it made me kind of think that if the Caterpillar has kind of reached this level of popularity, could we maybe end up seeing CIG going, wow, maybe, since this is such a popular ship, maybe it needs a little love. Maybe we need to kind of look at things like modules and stuff and say, hey, maybe we should get that stuff in the game. I almost wonder if there isn't something of almost like a silent majority type situation going on with Drake ships. I mean, for years, we've sat there and we've seen all this talk of 890 jumps, 300 eyes, Super Hornets, all this kind of big front, in your face type stuff where they're talking about all these great ships and, leather interiors and cup holders and ejection seats and all that. But it almost seems like Drake has just built up this quiet following since the beginning and has actually become the most popular. I mean, even their early days of the Caterpillar, back when the Caterpillar was the heavily armed transport. A lot of people don't know this. A lot of people who have kind of come to Star Citizen later on don't realize that when the Caterpillar was originally sold to the community in that first initial sale, and you can look it up, it's still there. That first initial sale, those two prongs on the lower front end of the ship were actually size 6 guns in the beginning. Like, this was the heavily armed transport. It was cheap. It was like $225 back then. And it was, it was a ship that certainly was something in the early days of something of a figure of menace. It was something to be feared because it was one of these pirate ships. In later kind of promotional artwork that CIG would put out, they would still keep using, a refined version of the original Jim Martin concept, which, by the way, is the guy who designed the Defiant for Deep Space Nine. And they got a lot of mileage out of those original, out of that original concept art that he produced. I mean, here you can see still sporting its size 6 guns on the front, the Caterpillar, right? And I have to wonder if, recently with comments made like paper thin and stuff like that, if maybe there isn't, kind of an internal desire to kind of tamp down the enthusiasm for Drake, because it almost seems like in the beginning Drake wasn't all that popular, at least not in terms of what was shown to us. But it almost seems like Drake built up something of a following, and for a while CIG kind of leaned into it, when they did the Caterpillar, when they made it flyable, when they redid the Cutlass, when they did the the Herald, sorry. And, when they brought all these ships, it was almost like they were really kind of starting to embrace Drake. And, of course, the Buccaneer and the Dragonfly were huge for Drake. And then it almost seems like now they're trying to pull back on the Drake ships, And certainly the Caterpillar has been evidence of that. I mean, originally had size 6 guns. There they are. You can clearly see them. And then that was kind of clawed back in the early days. And since then, it has kind of been relegated to simply being a transport. It's no longer the heavily armed transport. It's no longer the heavily armored transport. It's now just the transport. But even as just a transport, it's still a hell of a ship. Even if you take away all these other things like heavily armed, heavily armored, blah, 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 size 6 guns, whatever, take all that away. You still have a hell of a ship. And going into the future, you still have an incredible ship. Think about something as simple as, let's say they finally finish implementing the elevators on the side of the ship. Some people might say, oh, it's not really that big of a deal. But, couple that with something like being able to spawn other smaller ships onto a ship, like your Dragonflies, for instance. A lot of people are getting excited about the caves and going into the caves and mining, saying, oh, well, I filled up my vest and I came away with this amount, and I filled up my vest and I came away with that amount. With a ship like this and with some Dragonflies, you could land this ship wherever you wanted to, near a cave, and then just kind of sail in on your Dragonflies, load up, come back, unload it all into the cargo bay, and then go back and do it again. And you could do this multiple times. If you had a large group of people working, you could probably make money pretty damn fast. And even if you don't want to go that far, as a cargo ship, it's incredible. It handles closer to a fighter than it does to a cargo ship. There really is no comparison to other ships its size when you're trying to get up out of the atmosphere of Hurston or ArcCorp. This ship just tears out of the atmosphere on planets like that. It's almost criminal and how easy it is to fly the Caterpillar versus other ships of comparable size. When you think about the layout inside the Caterpillar and how efficiently just the cargo space and navigating this entire space is designed, in a weird way, I'm going to draw a parallel to another video game, and no, it's not WoW. I'm going to draw a parallel to Minecraft. Back in the day, I used to have a lot of friends who were big into Minecraft, especially, running all kinds of modifications with piping and building all kinds of factories and whatnot. And there was a very stark difference between, people's bases or whatnot that were built kind of from the aesthetics first versus bases that were kind of like, okay, here's where I need to logically place all my components so that everything works, and now I'm going to build the base around that. That's kind of what the Drake ships feel like to me, is that somebody actually sat down and said, okay, what are the functional aspects that I need to hit? What are the things that I need to have to make this thing function? Because that's what its primary function is, whatever that factory is supposed to be, or whatever that ship is supposed to be. What are the primary functions that I have to hit? And now let me wrap that in an overall good looking spaceship. Whereas it seems, like a lot of the other ship manufacturers are actually from the other point of view, which is, let me come up with something architecturally beautiful or blah, blah, blah. And then let me try to figure out how I'm going to shoehorn all my things into there. And then, if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. It becomes this nightmare of perpetual changes, trying to squeeze everything in versus just building, the guts first and then wrapping it in the base afterwards, So I kind of think that that's what happens here, With the Drake ships, that nobody's sitting there and agonizing over, where do I put the hot tub? Should I use wood paneling or marble? That sort of, it doesn't matter. What matters is the functionality of the game. And I think that that's kind of why these ships end up just walking all over this competition. Even the Reclaimer, you know, which isn't strictly speaking a Drake ship, though it certainly kind of looks like one, much more so than an Aegis ship. It is that huge departure from the Aegis line that I think that is its core strength. If it had been forced to, you know, adhere to the Aegis look or the Aegis lookbook or whatever, it would have probably not been half the ship that it is now. So I think, I don't know, maybe I'm just being stupid, but that's kind of the lesson that I take away from this competition, that I think function is more important than form. Anyways, I don't know. We'll see what the comments say after I put this video out. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.